Okay, well, the first thing that I'm going to do before we begin and get into any topics is to say two big thank yous. The first one is to say a big thank you to my friend Moabì. I'm still saying that the correct way.
That's good.
A man who has been on an incredible transformative spiritual journey, healing through the dark night of the soul, shall we say, finding peace and fulfillment through this very special and unique plant medicine that we will be talking about today. And we will be using Moabi's story really to help all of you to show you that there are other states of consciousness that can be accessed and to show you that there are other ways to heal and to live a great and fulfilling life as well. And we will also be taking a sneak peek into a very ancient, beautiful, and profound tradition originating from Gabon in Africa as well, which Moabi will tell us more about very shortly. So that's the first introduction, and thank you, my friend, for being here today. And I'm really looking forward to this. And the second thank you is, of course, to our audience themselves, all of you who are joining us today from various locations around the world. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this because, simply put, if you're listening with an open mind, an open heart, and you're looking for maybe a different path, maybe a way to accentuate or develop the path you're already on, or maybe you're completely lost and feeling quite out of hope at the moment, whichever phase, if you like, of the journey that you're on, I hope there will be something contained in this interview that will help and benefit you. So, with all of those things being said, thank you to our audience. Thank you to you, Moabi, my friend. And I appreciate every single audience member staying with us because I've forgotten to mention as well that this is episode 528, I believe. So the fact that people have stuck with me this long is also much appreciated. So let's get into it with your inspiring and wonderfully profound journey, my friend. If that's okay with you, we can start with some topics
Yeah.
there. Okay.
First of all, let me thank you as well for having me here because it's a wonderful opportunity and chance to share. This is a very old intelligence, Iboga, and the Buiti tradition. It's a culture and a tradition that roots back many, maybe 10,000 years old tradition, and it's been hidden for such a long time in the deep jungle of Gabon. And now it's time for people actually to reclaim it for themselves because it's the most powerful healing and awakening journey that I ever experienced, and also witnessing how other people react to that and how they evolve through that is completely stunning. Each time it fills me with awe for this amazing intelligence that the spirit is. So yeah, regarding my journey, I come from art. My background is in art, especially in cinema. It's always been my obsession since I was very, very little. And I was very happy when I started actually, having the opportunity of growing into that field and becoming a quite successful, I would say, film distributor and producer in Italy. I've been working in that field for several years, almost, experiencing all the different uh, possible careers and aspects of it. And but even though quite successful and even though so passionate about it, I felt that going through that path was continuously triggering some very dark states of sadness, of feeling incomplete, a very deep void that I felt inside myself that no matter how, nice results or big events I could attend, it just was always there, always, um, yeah, taking me back to very dark places. And this was it went on for many, many years, actually, since I was a teenager. And so I always also loved, psychology or counseling. I mean, I was looking for some healing techniques in order to, first of all, fix myself or try to understand what was going on within me, but also to help other people that I felt were similar. Because in the end, we all share the same life and we all resonate to the same problems and to the same, we go into the same dark places. But weirdly enough, even if I was very passionate about all the psychology and healing journey and the healing path, I never took it so seriously for many, many years. Like always circling around it, but never feeling that what I was testing and experiencing was the right tool for me. So I've been through like 30 years of psychotherapy, different approaches. I trained as a Reiki healer, as a Theta healing healer. I did transcendental meditation, uh, and several other things, yoga and meditation, other kinds of meditation. But there was always, for me, a missing piece. Like, this is not getting me to the core. And so my complete change started at the end of 2022. At that point, I was working with a much bigger than mine film company in Italy. So I was, like we would say, at the peak of the opportunities. But yet, that kind of dark side, that hole that was in me, grew even bigger and bigger. So I reached a point in which I developed what is, herpes zoster, which is a huge rash on the body. I had it here, like next to my heart. It was so painful that I thought that I was having a heart attack or something like that. And I listened to my body deeply for the first time, and I understood that no matter how I could feel, satisfied, but that path, the path that I was walking, was not my own. I was always in a relationship of, resisting to life. And so basically this resistance was nourishing a lot of stress inside of me, a lot of this sense of not being aligned with my true self. So at that point, I decided to actually dedicate myself to plant medicines because I had an experience when I was in my early 20s with peyote, and even if it was a completely informal kind of recreative situation, I felt that I received so much out of that. Like it was an amazing mirror in front of which I found myself, and I started understanding so many, like even hidden layers of my personality and not my essence. And so I felt, I was seeing that also psychedelic assisted therapy was becoming quite huge, especially in the US and UK. Not here in Italy where I'm based, unfortunately. There is still a lot of, ignorance around it. But so I went to Peru, I experienced ayahuasca and San Pedro and Peruvian torch, then Cambo, then I started working with mushrooms as well in ritual context, in ceremonial context. And there I saw the huge difference that experiencing and working with these tools in a proper traditional context, it's completely different. and it opened like a perspective that I never actually foresaw before. And but yet I have to say that after a few months working with these tools and having not always easy, but always very profound and impactful experiences, um, yet I was feeling that missing piece. And so actually it was after I had a very tough experience with a very like dear friend of mine who was actually on the brink of committing suicide. He actually attempted suicide when I was with him, that I felt both for me and for him and people like him, I really need to go on in my discovery and exploration. And all of a sudden, in all my researches that I was doing, Iboga appeared, like out of the blue. It was something I never heard of. No one ever talked to me about it, but it was like continuously coming up on my Google researches, in magazines and articles that I was reading. And so I started inquiring into that, and I started reading that it's considered um, the godfather, it's called, of plant medicines, and the Everest of psychedelic experiences, and that is so dangerous and so scary, that is so brutal and incredibly, demanding and challenging. And I also started feeling scared of approaching it. But then in the end, I really couldn't help like listening to this call. And I had my first experience with I chose a traditional setting with some really amazing souls that I had the chance to meet in Portugal for the first time. And I was terrified during the first night of the first ceremony. I was completely terrified and yeah, so scared about what I was about to discover, because basically what I understood from what I read is that Iboga is the most honest and brutally honest mirror of ourselves. And so I was terrified to look into that and to see what I could find. And I have to say that the first ceremony was incredibly easy, incredibly pleasant. It was all about realizing all the programs that I kind of have grown with since I was a child, all the negative patterns of thought that I treated as truths. Like I treated as my, yeah, the base of myself, of my identity, of my personality. And I saw them as completely ridiculous. So it was just realizing, how could I tell myself these things? How could I tell myself that I'm not worthy? How could I tell myself continuously that I'm not, deserving love from people? That I have to fight to gain love from people and love from life, and that I have to, basically I understood that I was living in total fear about not having like the right to live a good life, a beautiful life, and to enjoy every moment in this life. That there was something I was supposed to sacrifice, and I was supposed to, indulge in my pain, in my uncertainties, in my sadness, But this all resulted like, yeah, a completely ridiculous hologram that was that I was so drawn into and so convinced by that it became my actual reality. So the first ceremony was mainly about targeting all these voices and inside myself and starting my training in how to handle them. Like, first of all, it was understanding that I am not my thoughts. Thoughts are something that happen in my mind, but they are not me. And realizing that there is another level, a more powerful level than the mind itself, was the greatest liberation that I could experience. Nonetheless, I have to say, this is a main difference between iboga and other medicines. The day after the ceremony can be really tough, can be really challenging. And in the following day, what we call in our retreats, the processing day, when you are alone with the medicine working within you, and really you're starting to, integrate all the informations and the revelations that you had during the ceremony, Iboga started showing me like that I was again in a great danger, that working with Iboga would have completely destroyed myself and destroyed my mind. And I felt that I feared that it would crush me completely. And I need to be honest about this because people need to actually be prepared that the more resistance you put to this process of really looking honestly towards yourself, the more you resist it, the more Iboga pushes you, even to the point before breaking point. But it always stops before you break. But through this process, Iboga showed me how I was actually treating myself. What were my strategies of self-defense for, defending my... Because the problem is that when we start nourishing these ideas about ourselves, these beliefs about ourselves, even if we recognize that they are not sustainable, not positive, not properly adaptive, but we get used to them, we find comfort in them because we kind of draw a map of a territory that we know and we are familiar with it. So after a while, it becomes even scarier to allow ourselves to, travel beyond that territory. So the unknown, even if we are in an unpleasant and difficult, place, the unknown becomes even scarier. And we prefer to stick to those negative patterns, to those negative strategies that we use against ourselves, because we know them. I mean, I was 43 at the time, and so I knew that with my depression, at least, I arrived at that point. So why let it go? But then after a very tough day, I understood the paradox of this. The paradox was that because I wanted to, I had fear of the unknown, I had fear of what I really, really wanted. I was completely afraid of my real self, that I wasn't able to, I tried for all my life to hide from it. Because of that, I wasn't able to let myself embrace it completely, to allow myself to embrace it completely. And so I understood that I wasn't being honest with myself. And Iboga is basically an honesty serum, a truth serum, but also an honesty serum. The only thing that you can that can prevent you from meeting with this amazing spirit is if you are not ready to be completely honest with yourself. And the more dishonest you are towards yourself, the more, again, Iboga really, really pushes you to recognize what you're doing. Because this intelligence really wants to just make you understand the lies that you're telling to yourself. So after the day, I was completely, like, after many, many hours of a very challenging state, I finally understood, yeah, this is all a lie. This is all a hologram that I'm telling myself. I don't need to live my life in fear. This is not why I was born. This is not why, I'm here. I'm actually here to enjoy life, to celebrate it, and not being afraid of challenges, but to overcome them. And that completely changed my perspective. Yet, while the second ceremony was approaching, I was again a little bit scared. I went into fear zone again. I remember that the day before, well, the morning of the second ceremony, I even decided to escape from the retreat. So I took my passport, I took my wallet, I took my keys, and I said that I was just going to take a walk. And I reached the top of this beautiful hill next to the house, and I was going to call a Uber. But then I understood, yeah, again, I'm not trusting myself. I mean, if I'm here, it's because I made a choice. And I have to trust that my choice is for the best. And so I decided to go back and actually opened up with the providers and started talking to them. And yeah, just revealing what was going on. And I felt, I have to say, I felt so accepted and so welcome and so by them, that I understood that this is also a huge difference compared to other plant medicines. Because in Iboga retreats, when you work with the proper providers, you are never alone. You are always, you have always someone next to you that is able to help you in the right moment and to support you. As I see myself now as a provider, I define myself like an esquire. So yeah, people who undergo this process are the heroes, are the knights, and we are esquires that support the whole journey all the time, 24/7, when you are into this process. And the second ceremony, I have to say, was amazing, because during the second ceremony, what we do is helping people to actually start and ignite a dialogue with what we call the soul, the deepest and most honest part of yourself, the source of your intuition. And starting this dialogue, through this dialogue, I actually understood where that fear was coming from, the fear that I was living. And I was somehow shown that this is something that I knew and I tapped into, but I never experienced it fully. That, for example, I was born 2 months earlier than the regular time. because my mother and I had different blood types. So I kind of realized that since my early, very stages in this life, I've always lived with, my nervous system developed into a war zone because her um, immunitary system was trying to get rid of me because it was recognizing it as a foreign body. And so also when I was born, like right after that, I was taken to the incubator and I had a total, I don't know how you say it in English, when you change the whole blood inside of you because there was this conflict of blood
Oh,
types.
transfusion, I think.
Yeah, a total transfusion.
Yeah.
And I also acknowledge that that experience of being in an incubator for 45 days after being born, so without being able to connect with the human motherly touch, was, making me, it was the original, the source of the sensation of always needing stimuli from outside, like always need something to do, something to, someone to be with, and not being able to be with and enjoy being with myself. So enjoying my me time. And then from that, I started seeing all the times through my life in which I actually used events in order to confirm these, the state of fear, the state of continuously needing to be defensive and not allowing to flow completely freely. And I also, in igniting this dialogue with this deep part of myself, I uncovered that deep inside of me, I loved myself so much. And, and finding out that my soul loves me a lot and wants to take care of me was, one of the most beautiful revelations that I've ever experienced. Because I understood that I just had to treat myself with that love. That the key was, as we say in our tradition, is to treat myself as my firstborn child. And through that, my relationship with myself changed completely. So after the ceremony, the following day, the second processing day, was total bliss. I was so happy. I was like completely so grateful towards this amazing gift that we are given, which is life, that, I felt that I completely needed to let go all those fears, all those beliefs, all those negative patterns for good, because it didn't make sense. I mean, there was no real comfort in being stuck with them. And it was clear to me that this was the tool that I was looking for all my life. It was the reason why I never completely, started training in other stuff, because this was qualitatively different. The main difference between iboga and, for example, ayahuasca or mushrooms or other psychedelics and plant medicines is that most of them speak in a very symbolic, abstract language, while iboga is completely direct and completely literal. There's nothing to translate, there's nothing to interpret. It's just 200% honest truth. It's like, again, it's true. It's a brutally honest mirror that doesn't, cover or hide or twist anything about ourselves. And I have to say that in my experience, it also has a lot of sense of humor. Because when you do understand the paradox of the fear that you allowed to lead your life, you recognize the paradox of the stress and the depression to which you have become addicted to. Then it's actually so obvious that it becomes even hilarious to look at that and to consider that. So yeah, at that point, I was like, I'm becoming a provider. There's no way I can look away from this. This is the tool that I need to, to help people with. And yeah, and then I decided to go for my training directly in Gabon, to a village in the jungle, with a 10th generation shaman, and I spent a few months there training. But before that, I just immediately, like, I told the guys, what I'm experiencing is completely another level of clarity and of awareness, and I want to keep working with you, assisting you, and staying here in this retreat center. And but they were like, no, you have to go back to your life. You have to see if you can do the work, if you know to do the work, because iboga is not a magic pill. It's not a magic bullet. As I usually say, we are the bullet. Iboga can be a magic pistol, but we do the work. And so learning and also developing the discipline to keep that state of clarity and that state of awareness takes a lot of work. It's really, really tough. And with their help, I developed my own techniques, but there are so many that we share during our retreats to actually prevent the negative patterns to take over again. Because as we say, like, in the end, our mind is an amazing secretary. The mind is incredible at, solving problems and navigating into this reality. We really need it. But at the same time, we make the secretary the CEO of the company, and that's the huge mistake. That's the huge confusion. So, when you tell a secretary that has become the CEO that she has to go back being a secretary, the secretary will try to take over again. And so you really need to apply and to be disciplined in keeping her at her place, to stay put, to work for your advantage and not for your disadvantage. And renewing this pact with yourself that you're actually stronger than your mind. Because as an amazing problem-solving machine, the mind, when it doesn't have problems to solve, it tends to create them and to see problems where there are none, actually. And so, learning to tame it. Because again, it's a very valuable ally. It's an extremely, precious helper. But we cannot let her run the show for us. And so I was there in my house and back to Italy and doing this work. But then after a few days, I was just like, I know this call is true. And so I called them back and said, can I come back for a second retreat? And then I had a third retreat in Thailand, and then I finally went to Gabon for my training. And the training was very, very challenging in terms of, when you are, when you become a provider, you become like a bridge between the spirit and the soul of the other person that you're helping. And so you need to achieve a complete, to be completely cleaned, to allow the spirit to work through you. And it was very challenging to spend a lot of time by myself. As I was saying, I really had a hard time doing that, without basically doing nothing for most of the days and just looking inside yourself. But the more I was looking, if at the beginning it was uncomfortable and it was scary, then I started looking at so much beauty and realizing that there is so much marvel inside of us. We are marvelous beings, and we really deserve to enjoy this gift of life as much as we can, and never to miss a chance to celebrate this gift, because this gift in the end is the most precious one that we have, and it's given to us for free. We are not requested to give anything in return. And so this needs to actually be celebrated and to be approached with gratitude. And so yeah, now I feel really blessed for being able to guide other people through this path. And of course, we are all unique. We all come from different paths and different experiences and different, past family issues and really even challenging and tough events. But in the end, the what I'm finding out the more I work with this tool is that we are basically all telling ourselves the same lies with infinite variations. But in the end, we are basically telling ourselves most of the time that we don't deserve to be happy. And changing this and seeing people that really can do this, we call it the switch. It's just amazing. Every time I look at them with great awe. And it's not something that necessarily can happen in a couple of nights. It can require more work. Most of the time, all the retreats end up with a very positive state of mind and a very optimistic approach to everyday life. Sometimes it can be tougher because, again, it's when we are not honest enough to completely acknowledge all the lies and all the projections and assumptions and holograms that we are locking ourselves into. And then it can be a little bit more challenging. But also in that case, if we recognize that this medicine is just showing ourselves how we treat yourself, then everything becomes clear and you basically find your freedom from that. And you're able to detach from that.
Well, that is, first of all, an incredibly beautiful description on so many levels. You're a very eloquent speaker, and I can tell very much that you are speaking from your own soul in that sense. But more than that, it's very unusual for me to do an interview and sit back and listen to this degree. The art is always being a good listener, but at the same time, usually I have to sort of jump in at some point and say we need to go in this direction, that direction. But today I've just really enjoyed the flow. One small question I do have for you, though, please, before we close out with this, just so people are clear when they are trying this the first time. There is obviously the self-honesty that you have described beautifully and the reconnection with ourselves. And I found it fascinating as I was listening that this idea of not being worthy of love and needing a conditional sort of approach to, we have to do something in order to receive love for ourselves, all of these things is very much in our society. But my question is beyond that. My question is this spirit, this sort of extra force through the medicine, if you like, that is working with ourselves. How do we define the separation? Because you've described the bridge, if you like, you've described the fact that as a provider you become a bridge. And you said something there about the bridge between our own soul, the self honesty, but also the medicine that is speaking with us. And I also heard this in Patrick and Michelle's interview. And as I mentioned, this is fairly new to me. And of course, it will be new to some other people. So, how do you personally, within your tradition, define what is speaking with you and guiding you in that sense, if that makes sense where I'm going with this,
Yeah,
please.
of course. In Gabon, they use the term spirit because it's a animistic tradition. So everything in nature has a spirit. But maybe in a more Western friendly word, we can use the term intelligence. And there's no denying that everything that lives has a form of intelligence, which for spirits or natural beings like beings in like plants or animals, it kind of serves a precise function, a precise algorithm. And that's Iboga's function. I mean, it's its intelligence. It's why it's here for. And it's very funny though how Iboga was discovered because it's not like a leaf or a fruit. Iboga is the second layer of the root bark of the plant. So it's not even just the root. It's the second layer, so it's very well hidden. But and it's amazing that they found out that that specific and element is the one that has this power. And I think it's very important to stress also that it's a root. So compared, for example, to other plant medicines that grows from the ground up, or even ayahuasca, which is like I don't know the English term now, like it just flies basically. I mean, it's terrible. I don't have this term right now, but so it is a root. So it's all about rooting ourselves. And and that's basically its intelligence. Its intelligence is the interaction with ourselves. So it perfectly matches, on a neurological level. It's hard to be explained, but like what happens is that we are basically we receive a booster for creating so many new connections, and it's like fuel to generate new neurons and new cells in our brain in order to, again, like create and see more opportunities and more variety of possible brain patterns that we can create. It stimulates specific systems and specific receptors. Now, I'm not going too much into details, but of course, it's very interesting to study it. That actually reset somehow. We say, like, one of the definitions I love the most was that I read somewhere, I don't remember where, but was it Benjamin buttons your brain. So it brings back the brain to a, as we say, like factory mode, like completely rebalancing all the electrical, imbalances, and it helps in restoring even the balance between the guts and the brain. And it tends to bring us back to, the factory mode, like as clean as we can. It's also a very powerful physical detox. So, for example, I've been using it for detoxing people from parasites. It's very effective for, wide variety of intoxications and parasites and even metals. Uh, so, and it's not really about so much about the purging, like in the case with ayahuasca, it doesn't happen that often. Of course, if we have something that we need to let go, it's good if it happens, but yeah, basically it's an intelligence that we start that becomes like a GPS inside of ourselves. Because in the end, the work and the dialogue is with our soul, with the or our deeper self, or with our deepest consciousness. We can use many different terms, and it's basically all semantic. Iboga just opens up this channel of communication, and it helps in establishing this deeper level of, alignment with ourselves. I don't know if I somehow answered your question, because it's a very
Very much,
tough
very, very much. As you may realize, I had some topics prepared today, but we've covered even more than that. And really, as I said to you, I wanted to give people that overview, that what's the best word for it? The bigger picture perspective. And if they want to find out more, they need to reach out to reliable sources, which of course includes yourself. And this is, I suppose, one other topic we need to mention here, Moabì, is well, simply put, how people can contact you if they want to know more about this, because I would imagine with this kind of thing, it does vary somewhat as to the integrity of the individuals who are providers. Having been so deep into this process yourself, how may people connect with you if they wish to learn more about this, or, of course, come to see you and work with you physically?
Yeah, I think it's, as I was saying before, I think it's very important to experience these medicines in a proper context, and with
Mm.
people that are completely dedicated to this and that know what they are doing. Um, but also, yeah, the set and setting is so important. So I'm seeing right now that somehow our, official mainstream medicine is opening up to plant medicines and psychedelics, but I honestly cannot imagine how could it be to experience and to go through something like what I've been through in a hospital, or like with people like in a certain aseptical, cold uh, situation. So I think, I'm not saying that our culture cannot deal with this kind of medicines, but I think that we have to approach them with being deeply humble, and to really understand the levels with which these intelligences again work with. So I would really recommend to look for a providers and retreat centers that are faithful to the tradition, uh, not only for the tradition per se, but because, of course, all the elements surrounding an iboga ceremony are developed through thousands and thousands of years by the Buiti. The music, for example, is not a random element of that. The music is specifically inspired by Iboga, of course, but it's kind of very unique because it's not emotionally manipulative. It's emotionally kind of neutral, but with a light, positive general mood. For example, I even tried to do a self-ceremony with using some soundtracks that I had from movies and stuff like that, or supposedly relaxing music. But it drove me to completely different directions. While the rhythm and the specific uh, mood of these tunes is fundamental for the effectiveness of the process. So I work with a group of traditional providers called Iboga Care. So if people want to receive more information, they can visit our website and our social media accounts, again, Iboga Care. And yeah, and I think we also provide many scientific studies and research that we couldn't cover this time, but it's also very interesting to to know about that point of view. But yeah, I really recommend to be very careful, and to look for proper people to work with, because of course you are working with such subtle and delicate energies and aspect of a person's life that unfortunately can be very easy to manipulate situations, to alter the process, and to have people that get confused and do not really get to the point. Again, all the work is between you and the medicine, so the providers do not have all that. But of course, it's very important to not to interfere and to properly support uh, this journey. So yeah.
Well, it's been a very wonderful talk today that honestly has exceeded the expectations. I mean, one of the things I experience a great deal is the fact that many people find pieces of the puzzle, and many people find something that works for them to a degree or in a certain area or something like that, and they stick to it. And I admire the discipline of that on the one hand, but I admire more the fact that you continued in referring to your personal search now, my friend. You continued to dig deeper and deeper in your own journey until you found this beautiful medicine. But also, even when you found it, you continued to dig deeper there and continue to really understand the deepest truths, as we spoke about earlier.
Mm.
And when you say the scientific aspect, I'm sure in many ways we've scratched the surface from that perspective in terms of the medicine, the dosage, and some of these things. But what I wanted to do was show a very authentically human aspect of a healing journey and how this medicine, the tradition, everything involved plays such a vital role in that. And I say that because, as you've said, the medicine, yes, but you're doing the work, the discipline as well. So it's working together. But I want to thank you for that because, as we mentioned at the beginning, I've done over 500 of these, but this is one of the most profound, and the implications of what you've shared are very far reaching in a fascinating and very meaningful way for many people, but also for our society, medical system, and various other aspects, including the values of our society, I would say, which really need to shift. But that's a story for another day. And with all of these things being said, I would just like to thank you, Moabì, my friend, for sharing so many beautiful insights with everyone here. I appreciate it. I appreciate it more than you probably realize.
No, I really thank you so much for this. And just to conclude, I really think that connecting um, with this spirit, with this intelligence is really an amazing gift that a person can do to themselves. If you read around, like there's a lot of, about ibogaine and the work with, of course, which is one of the most important branch of our job, is helping people with addictions. So alcohol, drugs, and it's extremely useful for, of course, also PTSD. There are people that are even working with it for, helping early stages of Alzheimer and Parkinson, and there are extremely promising researches pointing into that direction. And it's very, very interesting. But it's not something that you would only do if you are like, if you feel broken, because in the end, we are not. Like, even the term healing, the way we use it in the West, can be a little bit misleading. I've heard from so many people saying that, yeah, life is a healing journey. But first of all, we have to ask ourselves, is there something that I really need to heal? Meaning, is there something that is really broken? Because in my experience, 90% of the people I meet, they don't need healing. They just need what we call awakening. They just need alignment, because there is nothing broken in them. There's no real bleeding wound. It's just we are just lost sometimes. And because of our society, that's perfectly understandable. And on the other hand, like, this idea that life is a healing journey is, in my perspective, completely wrong. You want to heal as fast as you can and as effectively as you can. And then you want to start enjoying this gift. You don't want to spend your life looking for healing all the time. That's another addiction. And so, yeah, I think that Iboga is really a wonderful gift that a person can do to themselves.
I like that description. I like that description very much. It's very much the perceptions and the intentions and so forth with which we approach our journey. It's fascinating. Well, you've also given me a lot to think about because I haven't got into this today much, but there's quite a few aspects of your own journey that I relate with, and I'm sure we can talk about that another day. If I seem thoughtful, that's why. But for our audience, absolutely beautiful and fantastic, and far, far above the expectations that I had. I don't go into interviews with many expectations, but I knew this would be good. But it's, really, really exceeded that. So thank you once again, my friend, so, so much. And I will send this to you when I release it and everything so that you can use it as well. And perhaps we can have other conversations in the future. I hope so,
Yeah.
both personally and in also maybe even in this context again. We will see where the flow takes us with that. But for today, as I've said, thank you so, so much. Absolutely wonderful, wonderful talk.
Thank you so much. It's been a beautiful experience, and I'm very grateful and happy for meeting you and for meeting your audience. So it's really an honor.
Likewise, likewise. Very much an honor, very much an honor. You have a wonderful day, and we will speak very soon. We will speak soon. Thank you.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.